Joe can't believe it. Is this really happening? From the second she entered the bookstore, he knew it. Finally, she has appeared. From the way she walks, from the way she dresses, her loose blouse and jingling bracelets, he knows she wants attention. Joe wonders, are you embarrassed being a good girl? 10:06 Tuesday morning. Delivered at last.
Hello.
Joe is starstruck and it doesn't stop. You see, she's different. She's deep. She actually reads books to change her life, to make her think differently. She's not like the others. And as she goes on her tippy toes to reach that book, Joe is a little bit shocked, a little bit shy, but also intrigued. She is not wearing a bra.
And you want me to notice?
I mean, if this was a movie, he'd grab her right there and then. Today, we are starting the analysis of Joe Goldberg, who believes he is the one, who knows everything about how love works, and who is determined to be with his one and protect her till the end. And how we should stay away from certain guys. You know how we do it here. We narrate, we analyze, we often judge, and we always pretend that we know better and would do better. Hopefully. So Joe has met his the one. It is that first look, that love at first sight that every romantic movie tells you about. It's actual true love. If you don't experience that, then maybe he is just not your soulmate. But he also knows that he shouldn't come on too strong. Ladies don't like that. He needs to play it cool. And here's the thing. Not only is Joe good in reading women, I mean, he practically knows Beck before he actually even gets to meet her. He also knows all about everyone that steps into that bookstore. You see, working in a bookstore taught him things about people.
I'm in a hurry.
He's just pissed he's got to buy Salinger to feel respectable when all he really wants to do is eat Cheetos and jerk it to eye point.
And to Joe, most people are just guilty about who they are. And if people would be able to address their self-loathing, customer service would be much easier. Joe knows he's judgmental, there's no doubt about it. But she's a sweetheart. She sees the best in people. And when she pays with card, despite having enough cash on her, Joe gets it. She wants him to know her name. Like a true romantic story where every freaking detail means something more. He watches as she leaves the bookstore, crosses the street, and goes to the subway. And he's intrigued. Aw, ladies, wouldn't you love if someone would look at you and everything about you would scream, I'm the one? People, I'm going to be very real with you. I totally fell for Joe the first time I watched this series. Look, who does not want to know that someone is so in love with you? The first time they see you, they just accept you and they are just in awe of who you are. They noticed every quirk you have and they feel that there's a real connection there. You are that good. But luckily, I sobered up. When you actually start paying attention to, oh my God, he reads me so easily. Oh my God, he knows things about myself I didn't even know I know. He sees me without even really knowing me. Turns into, run bitch, run. It ain't safe. People should get to know you. People shouldn't just know things about you without you ever expressing anything. Let me not think that I am so wise that I can understand things other people can't. Though, aren't I just doing this with this whole freaking channel? Joe believes in the one, despite the hurt that he experienced when he broke up with the last the one. You see, the thing is that sometimes you think a person is the one, but you don't really see the signs that are telling you they aren't. So he needs to be cautious. A little research and boom, Beck's whole life is online.
A brother Clyde and sister Anya. Your folks split when you were 12. Went to Brown, where you majored in lit. Cool. And minored in douchebags.
And here's the thing. You might say, oh my God, he's searching too deep on the internet to find out about her. But Beck wants to be seen. Beck wants to be heard. So he's just responding. Despite though Joe feeling very lucky that he can find everything about Beck online, it's also a little bit of an ick, okay? It's also like, why do you need to post everything? The fact that she needs to prove something about herself is just a little off-putting. He does notice that Beck just made a post, and it's about her latest adventure, the book that she just bought. The thing is that she didn't write anything about the cute guy she also met. And this makes Joe realize that her online life is fake. There's nothing real there. She presents herself as this lovable, bubbly, nice person, but there's nothing real there.
If anything, the fact that you didn't share me with your followers only confirms we really connected.
The next way in which the internet helps Joe and Beck reunite or unite on this love journey is her address. And Joe is lucky because when he arrives at her apartment, she has these big windows and he can see clearly everything through them. And he's a bit shook, to be honest. Like, does she not know how dangerous this is? You never know who are the creeps that are looking in. Look, I'm not gonna pretend like I don't agree with Joe. What do you mean having your windows totally open so everyone can see inside?
Jesus, it's like you've never seen a horror movie.
I guess that's the thing though, right? Joe is not self-aware. But he does know about Beck. He knows that Beck wants to be watched. That's why he's there. Joe wakes up. It's 6:30 a.m. and there is a yoga class to attend. And at 10 a.m. there's a lecture to attend. That's how your days goes when you are following what Beck is doing. And the fact that he started at 6:30 a.m., that's where he lost me. Let's calm down. He's getting to know Beck, and some things are just obvious, like the fact that the teacher obviously wants to F Beck, and how Beck allows it.
You're smart. You let him think one day he might.
What's the harm? She just needs good grades. He also notices how her friends are spoiled, rich brats, but Beck just wants to be like them. She's desperate to be like them. Joe gets her. He knows how it is when you had to actually work in your life to get things. There is a friend, Peach, who seems the most normal one. Joe is not so obsessed with her when she says to Beck that she shouldn't try to prove something to others and buy expensive gifts when she clearly doesn't have the money. Peach might be a good influence. I mean, she does sound like someone who actually cares about Beck, though she's also a bit condescending. Joe actually feels pity for Beck because if Peach is her only friend, well, that's kind of sad. Beck is back at her place and Joe is right there making sure she is safe while he's watching her through the windows. But what's that? A man steps out of the cab, and though Beck is a little bit annoyed at this guy, she lets him in. Not only into her apartment, but she lets him in.
Beck, who the fuck is this?
Benji is Beck's situationship, and it doesn't take long for us to understand that he's a dick, and she shouldn't be with him. Apparently, her best friend caught him cheating on Beck with another lady at a party that Beck took him to.
I was wasted. I didn't even finish.
He blames it on the stress because classic. And at the same time, he also manages to convince the two of them to get back together because, they should. You see, Beck can't resist Benji's touch, Benji's kiss. That's the thing. That's why Joe needs to do his research. Beck falls for wrong man. But that's okay. You see, when people are vulnerable, they need other people to protect them. Beck just needs Joe to protect her. It's like books. That's how his mentor taught him. And that's why under the bookstore, there is a secret special basement where he takes care of the most vulnerable books. To avoid the damage, they need to be away from the sunlight and they need to have right amount of humidity. Now, there aren't many books there, but the glass cage type of thing they're stored in looks quite big. Big enough to fit a person in. It is so easy to get into an apartment when you say there's a potential gas leak. The place looks a mess, but not to worry. When they are together, when Joe starts actually living with her, he's going to take care of it, okay? He's going to take care even of her laundry. He's going to take care of the frozen food. Like, he's going to cook all the time so she doesn't have to eat this shit. And everything will be perfect, okay? He is there to make her life better. And no matter how much she fights him, he's going to make sure that she actually protects her devices with a password. It's way too easy to access it now. And the best thing just happens. You see, he finds out that exactly an hour after she left the bookstore, she did actually mention him to her friends. She talked about a guy she just met who can actually read, and why wouldn't she go for someone who could actually be good for her compared to Benji? Joe is ecstatic. He knew it. There is something real between them.
I wasn't crazy after all.
Shit, Beck is home. He runs under the shower. But Joe is not worried. No. He watched enough of rom-coms to know that guys like him usually get themselves in pickles like this. All will be good. Joe is convinced this is a love story, and whatever happens is exactly how the movies show it, right? A guy who gets caught in an awkward situation because he just wanted to be close to the person he was in love with. Just a quirky, funny thing. Luckily, her friends invite her out.
I guess we're going to Greenpoint, Beck.
Oh yeah, Joe is already thinking in we. Manifesting. Look, it's very simple. When you start talking in we's, before you even actually know the person, before you actually develop something, you're just being loco, okay? I'm sorry to break it down to you. Yes, it's cute, it's fun. Oh, I already decided that he's gonna be my husband. So quirky. But at the same time, it's clear that you are looking at the situation from what you can get and what you think is the right thing. And not from the situation, let's get to know each other and let's see if we are good for one another. It's very self-centered, and self-centered shouldn't have place in a relationship. Greenpoint is a bar, and there is open mic. Beck is here for a special reason. She gets a little bit tipsy and she wants to finally be vulnerable. She wants to do what she came here to do, be someone. She's gonna read her poem. She steps on the stage, and despite her friends encouraging her not to, maybe it's not the best choice, she gonna do it. She starts reading the poem, and people are not that interested. People are kind of over with the whole sad thing. Could anyone ever write something happy and good and, cheerful? Joe is getting anxious. He can't stand seeing her like that. It's clear that she is blinded by love. It's clear that she is blinded by this city, these friends. She tries to chase all these things that will never actually love her back. But it's kind of crazy because, in a way, they're really alike.
Crazy lengths we go. We're a lot alike, Beck. Last of the true romantics.
Joe leaves the bar and he heads for the subway. But this will be the second best thing that happens to him today. Beck is drunk, stumbling down the stairs to the subway. And Joe cannot believe it. Is this real? It all feels so destiny-like. He doesn't like it though that Beck is very irresponsible. She is drunk, she doesn't even know where she's going, and she keeps on typing on the phone. Is she even aware how someone could have followed her? Some creep? Beck is typing on her phone, and at one point she falls on the tracks. Yes, that's how it happens. Just whoop, I fell in. But that's how love stories happen, don't they? Someone needs to get in a very strange pickle for another person to be able to play a hero. And that's exactly what Joe does. He runs towards Beck and he's like, give me your hand. I can save you. Beck is lying on the tracks and she's looking at the train. Oh my God, the train's gonna come. But what should I do? She's drunk. She's a bit confused. She grabs the phone and she grabs Joe and he saves her. He pulls her up and they literally fell one on the other, or Beck lying on him. And as train is passing, the wind creates the perfect atmosphere. Like every movie, that perfect moment when they meet each other again. Beck vomits on Joe. Suddenly they are at a station, I guess, or at a supermarket or like night market, something, They're trying to clean Joe's vomit and Beck feels a little bit embarrassed. You see, usually she's not like this, but Joe gets it.
I figured you had some kind of night.
That's the thing, Joe is understanding. Joe doesn't judge Beck, and he knows that this is not just typical, that the girls just get drunk like that and do stupid shit. Here's the thing though. Beck actually remembers Joe. She doesn't want to sound like the stalker or something, but she remembers him from the bookstore. Joe is like, Biz, please.
It's okay, I have a pretty bland face.
No, you don't.
There's nothing like that validation when you're drunk with vomit all over your face. They decide to share a cab together, and Joe has his game on. You see, Beck is open. Beck wants to share some things, and she actually expresses how she feels kind of lost. She came to this city to be someone, but then she feels like she's running around like headless chicken. And Joe gets it. Many people feel lost. But here's the thing. He actually read somewhere that when your IQ is above average, your life usually is pretty messy. And it doesn't even have to be that high above average. Oh, there's nothing like a compliment with a little bit insult there. Always does the trick.
I do think I'd be happier if I was stupider.
But then the world wouldn't know your poetry.
Wait, what? How does Joe know about Beck writing poetry? Well, every writer writes poetry, don't they? Beck is like, yeah, makes sense. And she's also very surprised how the poets that Beck likes are exactly the same as the poets that Joe likes. But that's how love works, doesn't it? Things just click and they're perfect, easy together. You like the same things. Beck falls asleep and she leans on Joe's shoulder. And Joe feels a sense of reassurance. Yes, he is her protector. Knock, knock, it's Benji. Oh, hey, babe. Oh, hey, this is the guy that literally just saved my life today. I told you, babe. People are basically good. Good job, bro.
Bro, you waste of hair.
Joe is not impressed. He hates that Benji is interfering. Before Beck gets out of the taxi, though, he asks her for her number if they can exchange contacts. And as Beck is searching for her phone, shit, she probably dropped it at the subway. But she can give him her email. She leaves the cab and Joe is making a mental note. There are a couple of things he learned about Beck this week. She is special. She's talented. She's passionate and she is smart. In ways. In some ways, she isn't. Like the fact how she doesn't lock her phone. The phone that he has. But that's how it is, people. Joe and Beck are meant to be. And Beck needs someone to help her, to protect her.
What you really need is someone to save you. I can help, Beck. Let me help you.
Benji gets a text. Someone is interested in investing in his soda business. This just might be the breakthrough him and his partner needed. Jeff! Benji is excited to meet this new partner, and the partner is taking him in some familiar streets, I guess. To us, even a bit familiar basement. A familiar cage. Wait. Jeff is Joe? Beck is stopping by. She has a little gift for Joe for saving her the previous night. Joe gets it. He knows how to read between the lines, and it's clear that Beck is flirting with him. So he takes the bite. Should they grab a drink sometime?
See you soon, Beck.
Joe wakes up with a smile on his face. This is it. Today, they are gonna have their first date. He's starting his day right, and as he should. In front of Beck's window, making sure she's safe and okay. She got a new phone though, and that could be a problem. If Beck wasn't a little bit naive, she didn't even log out her previous phone from the cloud. So Joe still has access. But as much as this day started with sunshine and happiness, it's kind of turning a little bit grayish. You see, despite this being their date, Beck is thinking about Benji. She is texting her friends how Benji is not answering and she is worried about him. And Joe is like, Biz, I thought I took care of Benji. Like, I helped you get rid of him.
Let me the hell out of here! Now!
Oh my God, Benji is so dramatic. Yes, he is locked in a cage. Yes, he's bleeding from his head. But let's calm down. It's not all that bad. Joe has a bagel for him. And also, it's not like Joe knows what to do with Benji right now. He only thought until the point of getting rid of Benji from Beck's life. But now when he has him here, he doesn't really know what to do with him. Impulsive decisions by Joe. This is where we see this double nature when it comes to Joe. When it comes to Bex and his relationship to Beck, he sees himself as a protector, as someone who keeps her safe. But when this is threatened, when Benji is actually threatening this connection or this love story that he created, he turns into impulsive decisions. His aggressive, violent side comes out. His side that doesn't think rationally, that acts on emotions. Benji is not only threatening that Beck would be with Benji instead of Joe, Benji is threatening to the very illusion that Joe created about Beck. Benji is totally different than Joe, right? Benji is rich, privileged, and Joe sees himself as someone who is morally superior, who is thoughtful, who is the right guy, the true good guy. So if Bex actually likes someone like Benji, then who is Beck? Is everything that Joe thinks Beck is an illusion? Or is she just a poor thing that doesn't know right from wrong and he needs to help her? He's saying he needs to get rid of Benji because he's bad for Beck, but in reality, he's getting rid of Benji because it threatens him. It threatens his illusion and love story. I mean, if you think about it, Joe, who he says watches a lot of romantic movies, who believes in the one and so on, is an example where people use or hide their controlling behavior and their abusive side and manipulation under the disguise of love, right? This is for love. They believe that this is actually the right thing. And when you see romantic movies where they are showing how stalking is actually that someone is really into you, or grand gestures are, again, someone is really into you, or being jealous is because they really like you and so on. When they show that as a sign of true love, and that's total bullshit, then you can easily get kind of blindsided by all these things when someone does it to you, or in this case, when Joe is the person who is doing it, right? I mean, they say it in the movies that that's how it's done. Benji finally remembers who Joe is. That's it. You're the guy who saved Beck. Oh my God. Is this what this is all about? You want Beck? Dude, you can have her. Like, I don't want her at all.
Careful, Benji. Not winning any points.
Joe doesn't like how Benji is talking about Beck. Like, she is his to give. And at the same time, it is a bit complicated when he knows his name. That makes things a bit tricky. Joe is getting ready for the date. Beck doesn't know it, but days of her dating bad people, wrong people for her, wrong man, is over. It's time for Joe to come in. I'm worried about Benji. Joe sees that Beck is texting her friends about Benji, and you know what? He gets it. I mean, in the past, he would push her, right? But he learned with Candace that pushing is not the right thing to do. So he will give Beck the option to say no to the date if she doesn't feel like it, right?
So you tell me if you're too distracted, Beck. You decide.
He's gonna send her a reminder for the date, and then let's see how she responds.
Sure, looking forward.
Luckily, Beck did not cancel the date, so it's on. There's a very interesting play here, let's say, where Joe is almost telling us how he is better now, how he learned from his mistakes. It's not okay to push people to do what you want, right? You need to give them a chance to say no. But if you really think about it, he could have not even sent the reminder. He would just let it go. Like, if she decides not to go, she's gonna let me know. But it's again asserting a sense of control. So now he pushes her for her to give an answer. Does that make sense? The date is going amazing. And Joe is looking at Beck and he cannot believe it. Like, this is how their story starts. He doesn't even really hear what Beck is saying. He's just amazed by the fact that this is happening. Beck wants to get to know Joe a little bit better, and she also expresses that she noticed he doesn't have any social media. What's up with that? You see, Joe Joe likes to live a real life, and being on social media can be quite vulnerable. People might get to know you a little bit too much. He doesn't share that with Bex, though. She also asks him the typical first date questions. What are your aspirations, your goals? She's mainly talking about his job at the bookstore. Is that something that he plans to be forever? Beck actually shared with her friends that, when it comes to Benji versus this new guy she met, there is this problem of how Joe is not really, up there. I mean, Benji owns a business and Joe works at a business. But when Joe explains to her that he gets it, even though he's a little bit annoyed, people in this city expect for everyone to have certain aspirations and goals and to be someone. The thing is that he really loves books.
And I want my life to be about what I actually love.
Yeah, I get that.
Bis, despite him being a serial killer, spoiler, he's spitting some good shit, okay? He could be the next Tony Robbins. And also Beck gets it. She feels a little impressed by what he said. But she gets a message and she needs to go. Her friend is missing and Joe gets it. It's okay. Again, didn't I get rid of Benji? Why does Benji still control your life? This was supposed to be our date. A little smirk here and there. Benji likes his shit. He passes out and Joe gets the opportunity to stage some pictures. How Benji is going wild with potentially other women. This will do the trick. And it actually does, because when Beck sees what Benji is posting, she's like, this motherfucking douche. I'm worrying about him. I'm trying to understand what happened and what, he's just partying with other women. I have to say that this narrative can be a little bit worrying. Let's not pretend that when someone goes to you, you're thinking about, oh my God, did they get in an accident? Well, this series go the next step. It's not just an accident. The person might just be kidnapped. So please remember, this is a TV show. There's another guy that she needs to worry about, and it ain't Joe. It's the teacher. It's time for them to meet at a pub. You see, she's way overdue with the assignment she had to do for the school. And the teacher is threatening taking away her position and thus losing the housing. But there is a solution. They can meet at a bar and talk about it.
If we're going to seriously discuss poetry, it should be over a drink. There's a little gastropub I love. So Thursday night then?
Beck obliges because I guess that's the only choice Beck has. Play the game or lose it all. And unfortunately, these things still exist, right? There are still people in power, in certain position that basically exploit or use this power to influence and manipulate other people. I don't know if you ever come across, and it's really heartbreaking, especially in maybe third world countries or places where it's very difficult to get a job, how women are forced to have sex with the employer in order to even get a job, right? And when you're pushed into corner where you feel like this is your only option, because otherwise what? Are you going to starve? Is your family going to starve? You're almost forced to give even more power to people who already use this power to do these fucked up things. Beck herself is looking at the situation as a survival strategy, right? This is what she needs to do in order to not lose her housing. And as much as we can understand that sometimes you're pushed in that corner, I do wonder if we would actually understand that that is not a survival strategy, because at the end of the day, it's not just about you giving into this one situation, but it is actually about you giving away the control of your own life. Because once you say yes to these types of people, even though it is the only thing that, or it seems like the only thing that you can do, it's actually never ending. It's not one for one. It's all for always. So I can acknowledge that there are fucked up situations where you feel like there's no other way. But at the same time, I think it would benefit all of us if we would start to change the perspectives that people have of women, or in this case, men have of women. Of course, this teacher is a dickhead. He should be reported and all of this. All of that is true. We cannot deny that. But at the same time, when we ourselves feed into using what they want to get what we need to realize it, that we are just strengthening that attitude. we are not actually making a change. The way maybe sometimes you feel like with your flirting and seducing men and so on is the thing to do because that's the only way you feel empowered. Just know that you're also feeding into that exact thing that you don't want to feed into, right? That you don't want to have. You don't want to feel that the only way you can have a sense of control over your life or over situations or over your career is if you play into flirtations and feeding into their fantasies. So let's first start changing that perspective. That's not a real power, and start finding way how can we actually change the perceptions that in this case men have of women and not feed into it even more. Back in this case, when she says yes to go with the teacher to the pub, she might feel like, okay, I'm in control of this, right? I know what I'm doing. This is just because I don't want to lose my housing. And it feels like she's, taking care of herself, but she fails to see that she just makes it even more real for this dickhead teacher to actually expect her to give in and for him to use this power. What I want to make sure is that this doesn't come across as me victim blaming. I understand how easy it is to blame back in this case. Why did she even go there and so on, right? But at the same time, I do think it's a bit of illusion and wishful thinking that I don't have to be careful in any way because they are the problem. Because the thing is that if you then get in that situation, even though you're not at fault, how are you protecting yourself? Or, in the It Ends With Us movie and this, what is his name? The guy who played Ryle Bodoni or something like that, right? And he's saying that we shouldn't ask why women stay in abusive relationship, right? We should ask why are men abusive. And on the first here, right, in the wishful thinking kind of way, that makes total sense, right? We should teach men not to be abusive. But that's only one side of it. We should also teach women that if someone is abusive, how to walk away. So in this case, it's not only about that the guy is a douche, that he is a predator and he should be reported and so on. But it is also that Beck knew what he wants and she went with it still, putting herself in a very vulnerable position. They're at the pub and this teacher is despicable, okay? This teacher is clearly using his power to influence young Beck, to give him what he wants. And then when he touches her legs under the table, Beck jumps away and freaks out. And she calls him out on the bullshit. But as we talked about it before, this is how you understand that when you think that you have power of playing into man's fantasy, things can get even worse when you don't comply. The teacher jumps out and basically calls her out on the flirting.
You invited me to.
No,
You flirt brazenly. You wear clothes so sheer, I can see your nipples.
It's interesting how teacher and Joe are basically bad people, just that the teacher is openly bad while Joe is like hidden bad.
Oh, are you not wearing a bra? And you want me to notice?
Beck is left in the bar alone and she feels down and she calls Joe. Now, Joe needs to run out of this bar because, of course, he was there and listening and watching the whole situation and then pretend like, oh, I just came because you called me. Now, I was confused that Beck actually called Joe. So there are a couple of things that, might play into it. The first thing is that because she went through this now with a man, maybe she needs a reassurance from another man, right? From someone who she believes is gonna give her that validation. In whatever way, she needs a validation from men, it seems like. On the other hand, it could be just a distraction. She calls another man because she wants to just, ignore it and have her fun, continue to have fun. And also, Joe positioned himself almost as a reliable person, you might say, right? He always says the right things and he made her believe multiple times or made her feel safe and seen and like he is different. So all of this might play into her actually calling Joe in this situation rather than, going home or wanting to be with her friends or whatever other option. Like, I was shook it. But let's say that this was not just a way for the writer to make it happen between Joe and Beck, and this was actually a true potential reaction. Now, for Joe, Beck calling him is a sign of validation, that he is actually her hero, her savior. He uses this to confirm his own illusions about who he is and what him and Beck have. The date is going well. They flirt with each other and they're actually playing like this silly game that all romantic movies show. You see a couple and then you're like, oh, how long do you think they are together? And they also spot an older couple who is happy and in love. And Joe is like,
It's us in 30 years.
and for a second there, he's like, uh-oh, I fucked up.
And that was way too much.
Beck seems a little bit confused at the beginning, but she's like, I love that. Which might show how Beck herself is a little bit, confused because she likes the attention, that he's serious about her in some way, or that there is a potential for something more, and almost neglects the fact that he said that on their first date, second half of the first date type of thing. And I wonder how many of us would do the same thing, right? You're on a date with someone and then someone jokes, oh, that's us in 30 years. And you would be like, oh my God, that's so haha, joking. And it can be a joke, but it can also be suspicious. I don't know. What do you think? It's the next day and Joe has to take care of his little problem. The guy who he has caged in the basement was almost discovered by the neighbor's kid. 1, 2, 3. Those are the numbers on the cups, and Benji needs to figure out which one of them is his soda.
Tell me which one it is.
If I get this right, I get a fix.
If you get this right, I'll let you out.
Benji is a little bit frustrated, a little bit worried. He thinks that none of them is his soda, when in reality, all 3 of them were his soda. This seems to be a little game Joe just wanted to play with him to confirm how stupid Benji is. Now, Benji is pissed and he calls Joe a psycho. Not only that, he tells him a bit more about Beck. You see, Joe is delusional. Joe thinks that he can get Beck, but Beck would never go for a guy like Joe. And maybe Joe needs Benji's help. You see, Benji knows Beck, and Joe is just someone who Beck is using to seem more real, more down to earth, right? But in reality, she goes for guys that can actually give her something. Rich guys, Benji type of guys. And the fact that she invited him to a party, like the Brown University kids party.
Joe, she's taking you to add texture. She wants to seem interesting, like she hangs out with real folk.
Joe does not like how Benji talks about Beck. He doesn't know who Beck is, but when they go to the party and when Beck actually lets go of Joe's hand before they enter the house.
Shit.
Is Benji right? We have a very interesting play here between also us as a viewer trying to understand if Benji is actually telling us who Beck is, right? Or this is just a projection of how Benji expects Beck to be. Right? Maybe Benji has a view that women only want rich men, which he would not be the first one. And how Beck is just someone who is a gold digger and just uses people to grow her own social status because she doesn't feel good enough. Or is she really like that, right? You are watching this and you're kind of like, Because the thing is, we ourselves don't really know Beck. We know her through the eyes of Joe. There are some things that indicate that she is not a bad person, that she's, a normal type person. So when Benji expresses all of this, you're kind of like, wait. But what the reality is, nor us nor Joe can say if that's true or not true. And what it actually shows us is you need to get to know the person a little bit more. You can't just form an opinion based on what someone else tells you, aka Benji, because he can have his own perspective. And Joe cannot just decide that Beck is not like that because he's already looking at Beck as though she is the one. And he's just trying to make sure that she fits into his world, into his love story. None of it is true. What's true is getting to know her. People at this party are not Joe's type of people. There is a sense of Joe himself being intimidated by people who are at a university, who are educated, or who went to Brown in this case. But he's positioning himself as they are not real, right? These are just privileged, spoiled kids. Almost like, for those of you who watch my SATC series, Carrie, right? She doesn't like the upper class people, but she doesn't like them because she feels intimidated by them, right? Despite maybe even wanting to be a part of that community. Though Joe doesn't seem to actually want it. But he does want to be a little bit alone. And at the end of the day, Beck is already flirting with another guy. So maybe Benji was right. These are the type of people that Beck actually wants. But as he is on the balcony, kind of reflecting if everything is just a lie, Beck comes and joins him. She asks him if he's doing okay. And he asks her why did she even bring him there.
I don't think I have a lot in common with your other friends.
And Beck thought it was fun. The thing is that she herself always comes to these parties thinking that she will actually have fun, but it never happens. It's always lame. And the fact that Joe doesn't have much in common with these people is the thing that Beck likes about him. Joe smiles and he's thinking, this is the Beck I know. She is the Beck he knows she is. And he gives her some wisdom. If she is not like these people, because, she's the type who had to work her whole life to get where she is, aka like Joe, I guess, he's projecting a lot. She needs to show some teeth, okay? She needs to stand up for herself. Beck leans towards Joe. And it almost feels like, are they gonna kiss? And she puts her head on his shoulder. Joe, I love that we are friends.
For the love of Christ.
There was another incident at this party. You see, when Joe was left alone, he was walking around and he came to the, how do you call it? The book room, the library room. Rich people stuff when they have a bunch of books, a couch, and you picture them with whiskey in their hand. That type. And he stole a little book from there, The Osman of Oz. And he stole it because, Peach needed a little bit of punishment. You see, when she got a chance, she actually approached Joe. And she was doubtful about how sincere Joe is, particularly how he keeps appearing in the right place at the right time.
Thank goodness for you. I mean, being in Greenpoint of all places, at the very right moment.
They're leaving the party and someone calls after Joe. What's this? Does someone know this little fella? It's Maddie. It's Candace's friend. His ex. She's sorry for what happened between the two of them. And she always was a little bit suspicious about how Candace just disappeared. Joe also felt bad. I mean, he thought that they were happy and then she just meets a guy and runs away. But Beck is there to the rescue. Hey, I have an Uber. We need to go.
I just felt like that needed to be over.
Bis, that would not be me. I'd be like, oh, let me hear this. What happened with the ex? Sure, Mary, you wouldn't. It's the next day and Joe wakes up. He doesn't feel the best. He knows that it's not Beck's fault for his feelings and okay, she sees him as a friend, but also why did she take him to this party? And this is where I'm kind of, interesting. You see, Joe almost blames himself because he read Beck in a wrong way. And because we know Joe, we are like, yes, dude, yes. But let's think about if we look at from another perspective, right? If we just look at the situation as it is, one might say that Beck is giving him a bit of a mixed signals, right? She flirts with him, she calls him when she is down, and she invites him to this party. Is it really that strange? Joe would be thinking that maybe there's something more. You know how I feel those things. There is always two sides to everything or two layers to everything. One is my own self-awareness and responsibility, aka Joe kind of realizing that he's creating a love story without even really knowing Beck yet, right? He already decided she's the one and all that shenanigans. But then there's also the other side, right? How Beck is coming into this. And Beck herself is giving some signs to Joe that she's interested. Is she not? With that, though, we could say that Jo actually idolizes Beck, right? It's not her fault. She's just this poor little vulnerable creature that doesn't know better. And that could be what happens when you're the one idolizing another person, thinking that you are already all that without really being all that. And you start justifying things that shouldn't really be justifiable. Now, when it comes to Jo and Beck specifically, it's not that big of a deal. This is their second date. But I wouldn't be surprised if people have that same attitude where it's a little bit longer into the situationship, when you start justifying things because you don't want to accept that this person is just not that into you. Or, like Jo in this case, you don't want to accept that they also played a role in leading you on. When you don't even want to acknowledge that you are hurt because this person also did something to hurt you. Does that make sense? But Beck has another fella to take care of. The teacher. She's back at his office and she's pleading him to let her keep the position and the housing. But the teacher is not giving in.
I wish you the best.
So Beck turns around, she closes the office door, and she says, I guess I have no other choice. And she threatens him to expose his ways. You see, it was not that difficult to find other women he tried to exploit. This was like gotcha moment. It's showing the teeth, standing up for herself the same way Jo told her to. But the two of us, we are like, Bess. Look, it's all good, right? You didn't give in into what he wants and you even, blackmailed him back? You see, Beck only does things to get back her position and get back her housing. But what about the fact that this guy is still in his position? Of course, one might say that it's very difficult to actually get a teacher fired, even though you have multiple people that could back your story. But I'm not going to pretend that I was so happy about this scene and about this situation, though good for Beck, because the good thing would be if this teacher got fired, if this teacher actually got exposed. But no, I guess these shows and movies keep on showing us how just do what's the best for you. What happens to the rest of the society, they'll deal with it. On the other side, Benji has a proposal for Jo. You see, he understands that Jo cannot let him go unless Jo is certain that Benji won't talk. And Benji has a secret of his own. One drunken night, he actually unalived someone. It was a crazy party and things got out of hand. Now, this is not just words. Benji has a video of the incident. He gives it to Jo, and Jo is pleased. I mean, it's just another confirmation that Benji is a douchebag, but still, it might be just enough to buy his freedom. Jo is working at the bookstore, and she comes by to say thank you. Beck brought a donut, a classic, a little thank you for encouraging her to show some teeth. You see, she used that in her little pickle with the teacher. She can keep the housing and she can also rip the check Peach gave her in support. Beck is grateful to Jo.
Not everyone gets why I'm here and what being a writer means. It's the most, it's the only important thing. And you helped me to not lose it.
One might say that Beck is the type who never believes in herself and feels extreme gratitude for those who help her. Here's the thing. It's all good when someone helps you, when someone gives you a certain push when you need it. But sometimes we tend to get a little bit too grateful for other people saying just the right thing at the right time. In this case, right, she did the research. She contacted multiple other women to actually get this, confessions that could help her in her dealing with the teacher. And yet she was so grateful that Jo encouraged her to do that. Almost like that was the part that is the most important one. Not the part that she did, that she took the action. And all of that can be very good. It's also nice that you acknowledge if someone helps you 100%, but it could also get a little bit dangerous if you come across someone who loves that, who loves being praised and perceived as he or she is the one who makes your life better. They even dismiss all the other things that you do for yourself. No. It's just what they say you should do and you do. That is the thing that is actually changing your life. Their motivation, their inspiration. Because they're just feeding into you being dependent on them. And that's exactly how Joe feels. He feels happy. He feels seen. It's good to be seen. All he wants to do is to help her. Beck reaches across the counter and they kiss. What? Yes, biz. They make out. I would say that Beck is confused, doesn't really know how to be on her own. He helped her in this, so now she needs to be with him. This is what she's looking for, right? A guy who would make her do better things. It would be better if Beck would just take that as a sign that she can do things for herself. And that doesn't automatically mean that she needs to be with the guy who inspired her to do so. And usually that comes from low self-esteem, when you never really believe that you're responsible for the good things also that happen in your life. We notice that Beck is someone who, when bad things happen, she blames herself, like she's the one who's choosing wrong guys and she's the one who puts herself into these positions. But when good things happen, it's always external. Beck needs to go to a class and Joe is love-struck. But he needs to take care of Benji. It's time to release Benji. But he does want to have a little talk before. You see, that thing that he said about Beck, how she is a gold digger, I mean, sure, Benji just wanted to be honest, but he's totally wrong. She's not like that at all.
You create the problem.
You see, Benji is the one who sees Beck like that, and that's why he treats her this way. He's the one who's projecting his beliefs about women, and he traps her. He traps her in a role that are based on his assumptions, and that's not okay. Somehow, Joe doesn't realize that he's doing the same, right? But sure, Joe is a good guy. He just wants to protect and take care of Beck. Though, he also creates multiple assumptions and already put her in a role he needs her to be. His one. And when it comes to the video that Benji shared, yes, good evidence, and maybe he will never go after Beck again, right? Joe can trust that. But that doesn't erase the damage Benji did when it comes to Beck. How will he pay for that?
Like you said, I'm not a killer.
He looks at the coffee cup he actually gave to Benji minutes ago.
It's about her.
I'm telling you.
You see, Joe, at the end of the day, needs to protect Beck. And he doesn't know what Benji might do to her if he gets released. So he had to add that 2 teaspoons of peanut oil in the coffee. Benji falls on the ground. He's gone. And Joe reflects. That's interesting. It could have gone either way. I mean, Benji lied so many times about so many things. Who knew the allergies were real?
I guess Benji's gonna die an honest man.
Biz. And again, it's not about Benji. It's not about Beck. It's about Joe feeling threatened. But she just hides it under love and protection of Beck. So this concludes the first 2 episodes of You. Now, this is a little bit different because it's kind of, crime type love. But maybe some of you were obsessed with the show Deadly Affairs. Or how was it? Like the investigation discovery. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to continue with this. Like, it's a very simple indication. If the video is performing well in some way, like people are actually commenting that they want to continue this analysis, then I'll continue. If not, I'll try to find another one that will suit you better. And remember, trust your individuality.